Oh, that was loud. Hopefully this is coming through. Let me pop over to Twitch here. Okay, so welcome to Captain Neutral Plays Dark Souls 2, where where all that stuff at the beginning of the stream. I'm gonna upload this to the VOD to the YouTube as well, so if you're seeing this in the future, welcome. Right now there's obviously no one in the chat room or anything. Basically, we're working on getting some episodes out to you guys, but it's kind of slow going, so I figured in the meantime I have a little bit of time today, and I've been sort of thinking about Dark Souls 2, so I thought, we'll knock out some Dark Souls 2, talk about it a little bit. Rumor is that Bloodborne 2 is going to be announced soon, and I've noticed that the Souls community is really doing a lot of these retrospectives, and I disagree with a lot of the hardcore nerds, so I thought, let's play through Dark Souls 2, because I do have thoughts on it that are a little different from everyone else's, and they're probably unpopular, but I'll throw my 2 cents in to anyone who cares to listen. So, a little bit about my Souls history. I played the first third of Dark Souls 1 on the Xbox, and kind of gave up because everything was shrunk down on my TV, so I couldn't really see crucial information like how to parry. And then Dark Souls 2 came out for PC, and I picked it up and played a bit of it and thought, okay, this is fun, I'll go back and try Dark Souls 1 again. And I kind of sort of played them back and forth in tandem and finished both of them within a week of one another. I've since beat each one more time. And then when Dark Souls 3 came out, I played that, beat it. I haven't beaten the second DLC yet, but for Dark Souls 3, but I've completed that one twice. I've completed Bloodborne once, so I'm kind of familiar with the series and with the lore, and I've dived in. And I disagree with a lot of the analysis on Dark Souls 2. It's probably, I don't know, Dark Souls 3 is my favorite of the series. Well, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2 are about even for me. And we'll sort of explore why that is as we play Dark Souls 2. But I think they were trying to do something very specific with Dark Souls 2. I think they succeeded at a lot of it. So we'll sort of get into that as we go. Oh, I gotta delete. So I'm gonna delete this one? Yeah. That was the one that I made on accident while trying to set up today.
Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream.
That's
a
a
murky,
key line
forgotten land. A place where souls may mend your ailing mind. You will lose everything. Once branded, the symbol of the curse, an augur of darkness. Your past, your future, your very light. None will have meaning, and you won't even care. By then, you'll be something other than human. A thing that feeds on souls, a hollow. Long ago, in a walled-off land far to the north, a great king built a great kingdom. I believe they called it Drang Lake. Perhaps you're familiar. No, how could you be? But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why.
I think this is such a cool little sequence here.
Like a moth drawn to a flame, your wings will burn in anguish. Time after time. For that is your fate. The fate of the cursed.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. We're obviously the dude or the chick. But I think that in that there, it's built like a dude. We've gone to this old woman for help, and she's directed us. She'd given us a fairy tale about this land, you know, far off in the north, that where we might be able to recover some of our humanity. So it says to me that this is, you know, if you're familiar with the sort of cycle that exists in the Souls world, we're early on in the cycle, you know, that people don't really know about hollows yet or anything, and so it's relatively rare. And so we find this like old ruin, and something in it reacts to us, and we plunge into a whirlpool where the reflection was whole, but the ruins weren't. And we plunge into this hole and find ourselves in this cave. So that, combined with the bit where she talks about how maybe you've seen it in a dream, implies, or should clue us in, that normal rules of logic and physics and everything don't apply, that this is kind of a dream. Which is something that they, you know, a theme they would come back to more explicitly in Bloodborne. As for this place, if you've played Dark Souls 1, it looks to me an awful lot like Ash Lake, which was sort of... It also sort of defied the geography and physics of that world, and it underpinned everything. And so I think it's telling that this sort of things betwixt, this place that doesn't really make sense, would be where Ash Lake was, where you have these trees coming out of this placid water, Obviously, there's a lot more going on here than there was in Ash Lake. Um, so, I mean, maybe it's just sort of a visual reference. And I absolutely love this. So you come through this desolate grass. There is a path off over here that's hidden. I'm not going to take right now because I don't want to embarrass myself. And you've got that big crack in the sky that's been sort of pulling us forward before, and now we have this tree with warm light. Everything else around here is super cold, but here's this warm, welcoming light in the stump of a tree. We're going to stop and get an item first. So yeah, you know, we've been wandering. We had a bad experience up at the lake, and now we've fallen in here. They've got some, what are those? Just bones? Heads on bones? I don't know. Got a rack of something out here. And like you can see there's some weird stuff going on here with that slab with trunks on it. Like things aren't quite right here.
What seems to be the ruckus?
Oh my, your face. The face of the curse. It's an undead. An undead has come to play. They all end up here. All the ones like you. You spoke to that kind old dear, didn't you?
Who was dressed an awful lot like these women.
You're finished. You'll go hollow. Yes, you'll become one of them.
Hollows prey upon men, feast upon their souls. This is the fate of the cursed.
What is your name?
And for a chaotic neutral playthrough, there's really only one name we can go with, which is Fozzie. Oh yeah. Yes, for sure.
At least you know your own name. Here's your reward for sharing. It's a human effigy.
Take a closer look.
Who do you think it's supposed to be? Think back, deep into your past. Yes, it's an effigy of you.
Okay, so we're gonna do this real quick. I don't know. Fozzie's kind of. We'll just go with the average. Looks like red hair. Don't care about anything else. Okay, so for the class, I think we're gonna go with the swordsman because it's like most well balanced for whatever we end up wanting to do. For the gift, I'm gonna say petrified something because we could trade that for possibly something really powerful, and we're good.
All people come here for the same reason, to break the curse.
You're no different, I should think. Doesn't stand a chance. never know. Go through the door and trot along to the kingdom. But remember, hold on to your souls. They're all that keep you from going hollow. Oh, I'll fool you no longer. You'll lose your souls. All of them. Over and over again.
So, this little scene has done a few things for us. First off, if you remember, Dark Souls 2 was the first time any of the Soulsborne games had come to the platform of a PC. And so they're sort of giving you the conceit of the game, that you're going to come in, you are going to die, you are going to lose your souls, but souls are the currency. They're how you're going to remain strong, they're how you're going to buy stuff. And so they're telling you all of that in just a couple of lines, which I think is pretty efficient storytelling. In addition, like, you find out that there's essentially 4 of them, which these 3 always made me think of, in a lot of mythological traditions, you have the 3 crones that spin out a man's fate, and we saw the 4th one with the spinning wheel in the opening cutscene. So the implication here is, like, people who aren't undead don't come here. So they've sent their 4th one out to go find undead, send them here, and then they greet any undead that show up and help them sort of remember who they are so that they stand a fighting chance. But they don't really care if you succeed or not, because if you are going to succeed, you're going to go in and you're going to succeed, and then they've helped you out. If you're going to go and get yourself killed, your souls are going to go to help whoever went in. It's a sort of a battle royale to figure out the strongest person. And it sort of is the beginning of something that will come into play in Dark Souls 3 of trying to find the strongest person possible to link the fire, which is something, if you're not familiar with the Soul series, we'll get into a little later. But yeah, I think there's a pretty efficient scene. I mean, it's a little slow going, but it's supposed to be kind of off-settling and slow going. Well, let's talk to this lady here.
This is a limbo. A link between Drangleic and the outer world. Fair traveller, I know that you must have a story. Why else would you visit such a place? This lost, decayed kingdom.
So once again, we get sort of an explicit statement that this place doesn't follow the normal rules. This is a limbo between the regular world and then the world of Drangleic, where things aren't as they should be. And for me, the implication is that if things aren't corrected in Drangleic, the weirdness will spread to the rest of the world as well. And so, like, you come through here to get to Drangleic, and Drangleic doesn't actually directly border anything else. The only way to get to Drangleic is through the things betwixt. And that's why it's a lost kingdom, not necessarily just that people have forgotten about it. It's that all of the routes there have been closed off.
My name is Millibeth. The old women were once fire keepers. I am here to look after them. It is what my mother did, and her mother before her, and so on.
So, a few things there. These women are really old. If these women have been cared for by Millibeth's family for generations upon generations, these 3 are basically immortals doing this job. And Millibeth, this is the first mention of Firekeepers, which is something we'll get into a little later. But so Millibeth sort of hangs out here in things betwixt. I don't think she's actually undead. I think that she's sort of protected by the magic of these 3 because she takes care of them.
The old women were keepers of the fire. But now, the fire shows signs of fading. And the kingdom is beset by hollows.
So, the undead curse, there's sort of some implication here that, again, the weirdness is spreading from Drang Lake. So, like, if this little white spot's Drang Lake, people go hollow first because they're closest to the situation. They can try to fix it. And then when that doesn't work, it sort of reaches out into the wider world and curses more people to bring them in and try to fix the situation. And that's why we see so many hollows here of like normal people. Is hollows, not many hollows out in the wide or undead in the wider world are coming in, but there are basically the whole kingdom has turned at this point. And that's because the fire is fading, which is
The old women are sisters. I am told there was a fourth.
and there's our confirmation that that one out there
Long
was one
ago,
of these.
Firekeepers were commonplace. But now they are lost, scattered to the winds.
And I guess that pulls up, like, their agenda is to keep the fire going. That's their whole role as firekeepers, is to keep the fire going. And so that's why they go out and seek hollows and bring them in, is to essentially feed the fire and keep it going.
The old women are...
Okay.
But now
Alright, so we hit our first bonfire, which you notice is a bonfire in the old sense of bone fire. There are bones in there, a skull, a sword. Kind of gruesome. We're going to pick up a torch, and I should note for anyone who's watching this that I'm not playing Scholar of the First Sin. This is the original Dark Souls 2. So we can comment on the game as it came out, as its own work of art, without dealing with the expansion stuff, which has its own quirks and foibles and, I think, flaws. I'm not saying that's a perfect game by any sense, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. Okay, so here's the tutorial, and it's actually, as far as tutorials go, it's pretty good. You have the option to read these, you have a chance to get in some basic combat against pretty weak enemies, who you'll note are dressed just like we were before we talked to the old women. So these are people who didn't even make it that far before losing their minds, that there was no hope for them. And that's why they're so weak, you know, and there's so few souls, is because they're pretty far gone. But it teaches you sort of about ambushes, if you're using the torch, about light. It teaches you about backstabs. Also, another sort of Souls tradition is you can see down there a place that you're going to go later. So it gives you these views. Once again, off the wall, like Ashley, for those of you who played the first game. Okay, so it teaches us how to deal with ranged characters and an ambush. Oh, maybe not. He's a little slow. Alright, I screwed that up by getting fancy. And all of these little posts sort of give you tips on how to play the game. So you can, like I said, it's a pretty decent tutorial because, you know, you can get as much info or as little info as you want while practicing it with these enemies. I think it's a lot better tutorial than the first game. And the third game's tutorial is pretty good too. But like it sort of teaches you about various situations you're going to encounter. So it gives you an opportunity to learn the basics of, you know, you've got a dude up there, a dude down here. The archer's going to give you trouble while you kill that guy. You know, how are you going to approach this problem? Because it's a problem we're going to be sneaking in the face with a lot. Kick a ladder to get to the nest. The birds. We're going to drop some stuff. Just to see what we get. It's sort of the gambling for this game. I don't know what White Ring does, but we'll look at it in just a second. So I'm not going to look at the item descriptions of everything, just because there are other channels that do that, and I'm more interested in like the aesthetics and the flow of the game than necessarily the lore of it. We'll get into the lore, but the lore has been beaten to death. Okay, sorry, I just got a text. So, I think, did I remember to kick the ladder? I did kick the ladder, which is another Souls thing of opening up these shortcuts to places that you've been. One thing that I don't think a lot of people liked about Dark Souls 2 is the sort of relative abundance of healing options. And I think that's because, again, they were trying to sort of attract a new crowd of players, and I think that by offering more healing items, they could make it a little more accessible. Even though I would argue that Dark Souls 2 might actually be the most difficult of the game, of the three in places. Just having to do with, like, I'm not gonna do this job. I don't need that item. I don't want that item. That's not worth it. But like the way your weapons decay, and then there's been a lot of talk about sort of the way the game handles, and I think there's a point to that, which is that it's manipulates a lot more loosely than Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 3. Like, attacks are slower, your character drives like a tank. It has a much different feel when you play it than the other two do, which we can get into auteur theory some other time. But that's what a lot of people claim it is that Miyazaki, sort of the head of the director of Dark Souls 1, 3, and Bloodborne, and Demon Souls, wasn't the director of this game, and that's why it's so different. And there is something to be said because they were working on this as they were finishing up Dark Souls 1, so this was mostly a second team sort of working on the same ideas and riffing on those ideas. And I don't think, and I mean, Souls community are kind of funny in many ways because, oof, mistimed that. Because so Dark Souls was, you know, considered a classic and great, and everyone wanted more of it. So Dark Souls 2 comes out, and they're like, oh great, there's more of it, and it was different. And it wasn't a direct sequel, even though, like, if you look at Demon Souls and Dark Souls wasn't a direct sequel to Demon Souls. It was, again, a riff on some of those ideas. And so people were expecting this sort of direct sequel, when I think what From was trying to deliver was something that was sort of thematically linked and mechanically linked, but not necessarily a direct sequel. This time that one. Again, I'm not going to go down and deal with those ogres. There are two of them down there. You can only see the one. There's really no point to doing it. Which is, again, I think is an important part of the tutorial, is that sometimes there are enemies that it's better to avoid because it's not worth it. You pick your battles, marshal your resources. Don't just charge in blindly. And that finishes the tutorial. So, we've got this weird little underground forest. We've got this, vaulted ceiling with, like, clouds up there we can't really see. It's clearly something else is going on. That tree stretches up just so high. We've got a crack there, and we can see the ceiling there. And we come through this little chasm, and now we can start to see other players' messages basically welcoming us to the world. And our first shot of sunlight in the town of Majula. And the ceiling's a lot lower. Like there's no way that space could have fit in this hill, which is again another clue that we're dealing with dream logic, that things aren't going to mesh up the way that our mind wants them to. And that's one of people's biggest complaints about Dark Souls 2 is that, Dark Souls 1 has this super interlocking puzzle box style geography that all loops back on itself, and that serves a purpose of making Lordran feel real. But Dark Souls 2 is trying to tell a different sort of story. It's trying to tell a story about sort of a nightmare, a dream. But it wants to do so subtly. It doesn't want to be as explicit as Bloodborne was in it. And so it does things like makes geography that doesn't make sense, makes people that speaks in a stilted manner, that puts you in a town where the sun is always just about to set. And I really do like Majula. Like, I'm apparently one of the only people on the planet that loves this place. And we'll get into Majula here in a second, but I want to backtrack and pick up an item real quick. One of the things I think is weaker about Dark Souls 2 are these little loading areas where you get a winding passage through a dark space that allows it to load the next area, switch skyboxes, and get things set up. But at the same time, it also sort of serves that dream logic of, why does this road go through this little thing? Where does this aqueduct go? It should go right into Majula at this point. What's going on here? We've got Bernhard of Jugo, who we'll talk to a little later. Basically, in here, the path is blocked, and we can't get through unless we exploit a glitch in the game, or unless we have a specific item that lets us open the way. And he basically is telling us that, and hinting at what's going on there. I'm sort of trying to get into the game proper, so we don't spend all day just doing intro stuff. So back to Majula. Now Majula, I think someone's going to describe it to us as sort of the last place of real safety in Drang Lake. And so as a result, you get this music that's sort of sad, but I feel like it's sort of soothing and comforting at the same time. It's peaceful, and it's it's trying to say, look, this is safe. It's kind of like the music in Resident Evil save rooms. For the most part, in Majula, you don't have to worry about much, other than trolls telling you should try jumping off the cliff. You've got sort of the master bonfire, the far fire here. And you've got just sort of a collection of huts that are all broken down, and it kind of shows that even the people who haven't lost their minds sort of stopped caring about things because they're living in these decrepit places with no interest, no work to try to improve them or repair them. But it's safe. Whereas other places that might be in better repair, like we can't see it from here, but down that way is the Cathedral of Blue and Hade's Tower of Flame, which is in relatively decent repair, but it's full of madmen. So it's sort of you do what you can. And here, like I said, I'm just sort of picking up the items. I don't even know that I'm necessarily going to use many of these, but I'm kind of a hoarder, especially when it comes to Souls games. We'll skip the Parma. Okay. And, let's go and talk to this guy.
Hello there. Welcome to my shop. I'm Morlin, and I sell armor. Oh, sorry, Please do have a look at my wares. I could really use the business. If you'd be so kind.
So we're gonna talk to
I came from the west, from Volden. Have you been there? It's a lively place, vibrant with trade. Very competitive, of course. And you have to grease the wheels to get anywhere. But I didn't have the funding for that, so I left home in hopes of striking gold. It's been years since then, and I've made very little headway. I don't even know why I'm still here. Everything's all run down and dying. It's terrible for business, really.
So,
A group calling themselves the Blue Sentinels have gained much power in Volgan. You can't even run a shop without their blessing. They claim to be working for the greater good, but it's absolute hogwash.
so it tells us a little bit about him, because the Blue Sentinels, as we're about to learn, are protectors that literally, if you're part of the Covenant of Blue and you get invaded by someone, they will come in to try to protect you. So it kind of implies that Malin might not have been the most upstanding individual before he became undead. I mean, make a note that he doesn't really understand why he's still here. He's just sort of doing what he's doing, and he's despairing, which is, to me, is a sign that he's about to go hollow. But he's also
By
not.
the gods, why the hell am I here?
But as they told us in the things betwixt, souls can ease your ailing mind. So we can help him out by buying stuff and giving him souls.
Well, I do hope I see you again.
I don't think he really consciously understands that, but that's something to keep in mind as his story progresses. Tighten that shards so we can upgrade weapons once we get the shop opened up. Okay, we can't open this house, so I'm not going around the side because there's a blood stain there which tells us there's something horrible back there. But we hit the rock. Now we get an Estus Flash shard, which is going to be useful in a second. I usually don't talk to this cat, because I don't like her voice, and she's a little weird. But she's another indication that Drangleic, the normal rules of reality don't apply here.
Oh, undead are we?
A talking cat?
One without much time remaining. Just about ready to fall apart, I'd say.
I think I'm looking pretty good, lady.
Not exactly the time to be chatting with a cat. Well, suit yourself. Oh yes, you may call me Shalqua. Enchanté. So, what did you want anyway? Ooh, you smell wonderful.
I think that's the first indication of our smell.
This place is already dead. Everything will crumble and waste away so that something new may be born. Isn't it wonderful?
And so that ties into the fact that it's always sunset in Majula, is that the day for this kingdom is over. The sun is setting, but it needs someone to come in and finish the job, essentially. And that's a theme in a lot of, in basically all of the Souls games that I've played, is that sometimes when a thing has gone on for too long, it becomes sort of a perversion of itself, and you need to know when to end something. And I think that that's part of the reason Dark Souls 3 is so clever, is because they're tying that into their decision to stop making the Souls games.
This place is fascinating. We receive only the most peculiar visitors.
Undead.
Folk like yourself. It's enough to keep even a cat amused.
And since she's another immortal, she can be, she gets to sit around and watch everything happen.
Are you going to see the old ones? Those four who have grown so incredibly ancient. They must have sprouted quite a thick coat of moss by now. For heaven's sake, no one even knows their names anymore. Imagine that.
That's sort of
Yes.
indicating.
Nothing like yourself. For you have a most pleasant scent that grows nicer with each passing day.
So a couple things. First off, I really like that there's a sound effect when she scratches at the wall. Second, the thing here about the scent is, I think it's the souls, that as you gain more souls, you gain it's not really a scent, but it's the creatures that can use souls can tell it, and it's almost like a sixth sense that they can sense it about you. In your character, so those four old ones have sort of stagnated. They're not going to grow any stronger, so their scent isn't going to change. They're not like you, because you're going to continue to grow and evolve, and your scent is going to become better and better. But I also think she's making a hint that if reincarnation is a thing, which these four old ones kind of indicate that it is, that a soul can be reborn in a new body, then it's entirely possible that your character is a reincarnation of maybe the character from the first game. But that's left as subtext for each individual player to interpret.
Have you made friends with the man by the sea?
We're about to.
He's lost everything. Absolutely everything. The only thing he's good for now is a few tidbits on covenants. Covenants are a type of, well, contract, you might say. You give something to gain something. That's the way humans like it, right? It might be just the thing you need. But what does a cat know? Did you see that oddly formed rock behind here? Long ago they called it Victor's Stone, as I recall. If you wish to face greater challenges, speak to the rock. Although, you'd just as well not.
Her directions are a little weird, but I picked up some homeward bones there. Basically, you can make the game harder
This
for
place
yourself.
is already dead. Everything will crumble and waste, isn't it?
Okay, so now she's repeating. And she sells some fun stuff that we'll get later.
Nothing suited you, I presume? Well, that's...
Alright. Yeah, so Victor's Rock, she says it's behind here, but it's actually up that path over there.
Who are you? Oh, it doesn't matter. Just help me open this door. I packed my tools in here, seeing it was vacant. But now somebody's gone and locked the door.
Wonder who could have done that? We're not going to talk to him more because he's grumpy. I don't like him. So this is the guy that the cat was talking about. And before we talk to him, let's check this out. That's how many deaths people have experienced while playing Dark Souls 2. 348 million. Almost 500 million deaths during the game. I think that's only online play, because I don't think it could really... I don't know what this one does. But I don't think it counts. It can count offline play, so that's just people who've been connected to the internet when they die.
You're undead, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
You have that distinct scent, the smell of irreversible fate. This is Majula. It is a kind of settlement, a place where life is almost normal. And in Drang Lake these days, there are very few places like that.
Oh, got too far away.
I am Solden. And like you, I lost everything. And now I'm here. You probably heard that it was possible to break the curse here. Well, that's not true at all. There's nothing here for you, me, or anybody. Do you know much about souls? Even I'm not certain, but I'm told that the soul is the essence of life itself. Anything living, sentient or no, supposedly has one. What we call the curse is traceable to the soul. Do you see what that means? To be alive, to walk this earth. That's the real curse, right there. We undead will never die. And that's quite a predicament, really.
So he's claiming that existence is pain, and really the curse wouldn't be so bad, except you just keep experiencing pain over and over again. He's really emo, and I think that the reason he doesn't hollow is that he's sort
There are four beings
of so
in this
embraced
land
his
with
depression
giant souls.
and his fear.
And wherever you go from here, you'll sooner or later come up against them. Each has a powerful soul and a terrible curse. If that frightens you, then you ought to just give up right now, like I have. Do you ever cry out for help? The journey of an undead is long and treacherous. You'll face invaders from other worlds at every turn. If you need help, why not proclaim faith in the Blue Sentinels? When you face danger, the Blue Sentinels will come to your aid.
So these are the same guys that
Protection
Mullen
is
was
yours,
saying,
if you wish.
you know, you can't do
We
business
only
in
accept their kind
Vogelin or
embrace.
Vogan without them. We're going to join the Covenant just because I'm really bad at PvP. And it's kind of a cool thing.
That is a wise decision. People are weak, but the Blue Sentinels watch over us in their benevolence. Let the Sentinels cradle you in their embrace. Do you feel it suits me just fine? As I've nothing left anyway.
Okay.
It will grow on you, this place. Give it some time.
I'm sort of giving you the sort of the rundown of not just the game, or this place, but the game too. That these games get a lot more fun the more you get used to them and learn their rhythms.
May you find peace on your journey.
We can sit and chat with him, but I'm going to sort of fast forward it. Basically, he gives us the three different ways we can go from here right now. We can go over there towards the Forest of Fallen Giants to that fortress we see on the knoll over there. We can go through the path, the arch down there that we can't really see from here. They'll take us through this hill and spit us out over there with the Hades Tower Flame and the Cathedral Blue. Or he also suggests that we absolutely not go in that hole in the ground outside Shopcore's hut, which right now if we try to go down there we will die. He tells us we might need a ladder, which sort of clues us into sort of the condition to get down there. Although the Silver Cat ring helps too, which Shopcore sells for a ridiculous amount of souls. I'm going to rest at the Farfire because it's bothering me that my soul isn't, or my sword's not repaired. Oh, we gotta do the rings. So, equipment. White ring. Let's just take on the appearance of a phantom. Ooh, look at that. I'm not gonna wear it. And then the blue seal. Well, God of Dreams. The blue ring increases our health a little bit in addition to being the Covenant item. Okay, so this is the Emerald Herald, one of the more important NPCs we're going to encounter. Not just because she lets us level up.
Are you the next monarch? or merely a pawn of fate. Bearer of the curse, I will remain by your side till this frail hope shatters. Take this with you. May it ease your journey.
We get our sunny D. So she basically asks us, are we going to be the next king or
Go
queen?
on and see the king. He who made Drangleic what it once was. He who peered at the essence of the soul. King Vendrick.
Alright, so Vendrick started Drangleic. There's his castle right there. This sort of looms over the early game, reminding you of your ultimate goal. But apparently we need to replace it.
Bearer of the curse, seek misery. For misery will lead you to greater, stronger souls. You will never meet the king with a soul so frail and pallid.
So basically she's telling us that, you know, if we want to be king, we need to be strong. Or to be strong, we need to get souls. In order to get souls, we need to find people who've lost their minds.
Seek those whose names are unutterable. The four endowed.
There's those four again.
Their souls will serve as beacons. Once you have found them, return here to me, so that hope will not fade away. Is that a shard you found? Here, let me see it, so that I may help you. To see light, to see hope, however faint it might be.
Alright, so the flask, basically it only holds like one sip, but now we just made it so it can hold two. Don't think we can level up. And I don't know that she has anything interesting to
Over
say.
the hill and past the forest is the king's castle, where a man peered straight into the essence of the soul. But whatever came of it?
So she's just telling us that it's just right there. It's just the castle. But apparently we've lost all touch with it.
Those who come to Drangleic seeking salvation soon lose hope and turn hollow. It happens to them all, sooner or later. That blue knight at the base of the tower, his spirit is already broken. Although he does offer sound advice. Perhaps he is a foreshadowing of your own future.
So yeah, so not a lot of people have confidence in us at this stage of the game. So put that Estus flask. We don't want to equip anything else just yet. Alright, so that's all there is to do in Majula right now. So let's head off to the forest. One of the things I've noticed with speedrunners is that, you know, they skip a lot of these treasure chests where you already know what's in them and you know it's not something you're likely to use. Like, I probably could have skipped that, but I'm really impulsive. So here's another one of those loading areas where it's sort of transferring the skybox. It bothers me that this doesn't go anywhere, I'll admit it. But it sort of forces you to wind and wind and then wait for this thing while it sort of gets rid of the assets that are loaded for Majula, loads in the assets for the Forest of Fallen Giants, and swaps the skybox. Alright. So, if you recall, going back to that whole dream logic thing, the sea is off to our left. We should actually be in the middle of a cove right now. But there's a river flowing away from the sea, which makes two rivers flowing away from the sea, which makes very little sense. another human effigy. And let's see if I can work this jump. Made it. Alright. You can also get this without doing the jump, but I think it's a little more fun to do the jump. Alright, so now we're in the forest. We've got some dudes just sort of wandering around. Let's see if we can locate the castle. I don't see it. Oh, he saw me. Let's try to pull this guy. And one of the things that I do appreciate about Dark Souls is how it's made my other gameplay a lot better. Like, I'm much better about, you know, pulling groups, paying attention to my surroundings. You know, I just recently played through the opening of Destiny, and I was terrible at Halo. But I feel like I was much better at Destiny just because sort of there's the castle. So like, the castle was almost due that way from Majula. So again, like, excuse me, we're covering a lot more ground in these tunnels than you would think. I think that is, again, just sort of subtly reinforcing that whole dream logic thing. You gonna shoot? Yo! Alright, there's a corpse. It's never a corpse. Oh, missed that. That's another thing that they changed. Plunging attacks are actually a lot harder to pull off in Dark Souls 2 than they are in Dark Souls 1 and 3. And I think, again, it's because they're more finicky about the facing of your character. You can't just turn around in midair as easily. Like, in general, like, it's almost instant to turn around and change direction in Dark Souls 1 and 3. You have a little bit of momentum in Dark Souls 2. And this is the first of the things that I find frustrating about Dark Souls 2, is areas like this one are, like, the games are supposed to be difficult to sort of make you feel like you're in a world that is hostile and out to get you. But the difficulty isn't the point. The difficulty is in service of what they're trying to say. Dark Souls 2 has a few places where it feels like it's difficult just for the sake of being difficult. Like they really try to stack the deck against you. And if I were to fight up here, that would be the case, where I'd have to be fighting those three guys with an archer up above, and potentially hitting that Hague Knight, as well as a sleeper corpse. And it's just sort of dirty cool. Like this ambush. But like, this is a more interesting problem. You've got this narrow stairway, you've got two guys, like, you can funnel them, you have a lot of options where you can sort of outthink them. Whereas down there, you basically just sort of run around and hope that you outlive them. Oh, he got me. Another jump. Oof, almost missed that one. Okay. So my first time playing this game, like, I could not. It took me forever to get through this area. But it was weird how there was this sort of sense of progress of getting to the point where I could get up to here without using any healing items, and then getting to where I get to the next section without using healing items. it's just interesting to me how you can, with Dark Souls, you can track your improvement, and even in the one that the hardcore fans say is the easiest and the most and the worst of the bunch, still sort of adheres to the core philosophies of the game. So the human effigies are sort of, if you die, they're how you become human again instead of hollowed. And there are certain advantages and disadvantages to being human versus hollowed. So that guy, if I had tried to fight these down here, or if I had just tried to go through that gate, he would have stood up and attacked me. But I've played this game enough to know that he's not. You know, that he does that. A big chunk of Dark Souls is observation. You know. Also, like you should have, is it up here? They're warning you about the guy behind. These ones are telling you not to go in because there's a dude over here. But there is that guy that usually there's a warning about. I don't have throwing knives or anything yet, so I think if I just... No, okay. That shouldn't have been a plunging attack. Shoot, shoot! That could have been bad. But going back to what I was saying earlier about the weapon durability, is like, look at my scimitar, it's almost done. And I'm, you know, only about 2/3 of the way through this section. So they really don't give you a lot of, you know, that's one of the resources that they added to try to make it so that you really thought about whether you could afford to do extra exploration, whether you wanted to do multiple forays. This is how I handle this guy. There are a lot of different ways you can do it. I like to just hit him with a throwing knife. He chucks a firebomb, he falls down. And then I stab him. Okay, the archer retreated, but he's got buddies. And aggression. That's another thing that I think a lot of the fans of Dark Souls, and I can't say for Demon Souls whether it encourages a little bit of more defensive passivity, a passive style play. And again, here's another spot where you can see places you're going to be going to later. We're going to be going along that rampart. We're going to be messing around down there. Eventually over there. Like, this is actually a really neat little wall top because it gives us views of so much, like places that, like where that tree is over there, we're not going to get to that to the very end of the game. I think that's interesting. But we are going to go there. It's sort of a promise of, you know, yes, you are going to be able to reach all of these places. Corpses are never just corpses if they don't have items. Alright. So we made it with our sword just barely intact to the first real bonfire. I'm going to light it. And we're going to make a quick trip upstairs. So one of the things that I didn't realize until much later in the game, I was watching sort of things you didn't know about Dark Souls 2. This door is locked. It requires a key that the first boss drops. But it's also broken, so if you're mean enough, you can just knock it down. Once again, always be on the lookout for corpses that aren't corpses. And his thing is that he he'd actually let us loot everything in here. And where he gets us is when we come into here, where all these bloodstains are, and we try to open the chest. And there's another shard. Like, look at this. Yep, I'm fighting, I'm healing, and I'm dead. And that guy was just naked. Oh, and he just fell. He wasn't ambushed. He missed that jump. Alright. So this is Malintia.
Buy something. Anything.
Oh, come now, help an old woman and buy something.
She seems nice, right? I mean, she's super happy. If we talk to her.
My name is Melinda. You're a stranger to this land. Oh, we get as strangers these days. Everybody's gone and run off. Dranglake's been a pile of rubble since the war fought long, long ago. And the giants crossed the sea.
So she's got some weird shadow magic on her hands, which is weird. I think there's more going on with Malintia than meets the eye.
Seemed like the battles would never end. Poor folk like myself have nary a place to sleep. That's why I keep all me things right with me.
It's a smart move.
Travel light, but methinks you bear a burden of your own.
Yeah, the blacksmith put his stuff down, and then it got locked in a house.
Say these trees grew from the remains of the giants. From each carcass sprouted new life growing into what you see now. But you know what they also say?
Don't believe what an old hag says.
So the idea is that this forest didn't exist until after the war with the giants, when they all died and sprouted
It's
trees.
high time that I pick up a move. I've a bargain for you next time we meet, my love. It's high time.
Okay. So, if we look at her stuff, she's got just sort of some normal stuff. But of note is this. Someone locked the door on him and then took away the key. Who could that have been? So we're going to take that so we can unlock the blacksmith shop. But once again, she's sort of manipulating the situation to get herself souls, to keep herself sane. It's another way you can do that without going out and killing people. It's probably the safer way. But it also probably isn't the way you're going to get the most. We're going to travel back to Majula. Because we got to turn in a shard, we got to get Linnegrass into his shop. So let's do the Linnegrass thing first.
I'm a blacksmith. I'm nothing without my tools. Bring me that key. Chop chop.
Wow.
I'm a blacksmith.
Alright. Speaking of the key, let's have a look at that. Oh. No. Majula, the land of exiles, is comprised of abandoned old houses, one of which Linnegrass has fashioned into a workshop. And I think that it's interesting that it's clear that he had set up. It wasn't like he just dropped his pack in here and then left. He came in and set up a full-on shop, and she's like, oh, I can make some money here. Right, the short bow, which is handy.
Ah, yes, very good. Now I can get to work. But first, let me set up. Come again later.
Not even a word of thank you.
Ah, yes, very good. Now, but first, let me set up.
Is that a shard? Here, to see light. However...
Oh. Wrong thing. Whatever. As I recall... I don't really know what I'm planning to do with this character. And it looks like no one's in chat. So, I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, mention in the comments if you have a specific build you want me to... if you want me to go for. Probably not, like, this is not a good starting character for any sort of magic build, but it, you know, strength, dex, quality, we can pick a weapon. That is cool looking. I don't think I've seen that one before. Alright, so we're gonna rest. Wintergrass is now open for business. Sort of slow, weary, pounding.
You, stand back. This is dangerous work.
As he beats me in the head with his
The
tongs.
name's Lenigrast. Just a simple blacksmith. And you are... another useless traveler.
Useless? Dude, I just let you into your
Man
house.
ought to labor with his feet planted firmly in the earth. Not roam around like you flirtatious vagabonds. Oh, what does it matter? Go on, show me what you've got. Your equipment. Let me have a look. But do it quick.
Alright. Oh, do we not have... Oh, we don't have the souls. Oh. Or the shard. Never mind.
Drat. You're worse than my reckless daughter. Don't spend your whole life in transit, you hear?
Now, I think it's interesting. He's clearly hollowing. Like, his body is decaying. And yet, he's not attacking us. He's just continuing to work. Worried about his daughter.
You'll need souls to repair and improve equipment.
And there's his gimmick as to how
I
he's
know
staying
only
safe.
of smithing, but souls have many other uses as well. Don't waste your souls on useless trinkets. Think before you spend. Equipment can be strengthened with rare ore stones. My girl knows her stones, but she's always out prancing about.
Remember that.
Now, there's a time for travels, but you can't wander the world forever. Even you must have someone waiting back home.
And that sort of ties into this idea that Drang Lake, like, once you get here, it is the world. There's no way out. You'll just circle back around.
Drat.
Alright.
You'll need...
Oops. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go one last place, and then I think I'm gonna cut the stream off for today. If there's interest in this, you know, I'll continue, because there's so much going on with this game. Like just the way that they set it up, so that you essentially start off with two feasible branches. You can, if you're doing a new game plus, you have a couple more options because you'll have items from your first playthrough that'll let you do things in a different order. But you basically have two directions you can go. The way that I just went, and then this way. Oh, Crimson Parma. And both of these ways ultimately lead to the same destination. You technically don't have... I don't think you have to kill the last giant, just the first boss of the game. I think you can avoid him. So you could, alternatively, you could follow this tunnel, another one of those winding loading tunnels that changes the skybox and, well, it gives them time to load assets to bring you out to here, which we saw way out in the sea. Once again, the tunnel doesn't cover as much ground as we saw. Excuse me. Alright, so we're gonna see if I can avoid dying to this old knight. Oh, shoot! I don't have a shield. That's problematic. Like, these guys aren't really that hard, it's just they have a bit of a follow-through on their swing that makes it problematic. Oop. Thank you. Ooh. Glad he did the downstroke there. So yeah, we'll light this bonfire. And another thing that I think is really fascinating about this game is the way that the progression of time works. If you remember in Majula, well, we'll show you. So look at the sun right now and where it is. It's sort of just starting to sink below the horizon, but it is definitely partially below the horizon. Now we'll go to Majula. Where the entire sun is above the horizon, you have just a little gap between it and the sea. So, like, as you progress through the game, you sort of progress through a couple of days of time. And each area has sort of a specific time that it corresponds to. And that kind of clues you in on sort of the suggestive order of the game. Is if you're, doing a bunch of, if you're doing stuff in the middle of the day and all of a sudden it's nighttime, you probably skipped something. If there wasn't a transition in between. So, I think this is where I'm going to go ahead and cut it for today. Thank you for watching, and keep an eye out for the next one. Until next time, keep it chaotic.